All right, today we're diving into a pretty radical new idea for our power grids. I mean, forget just thinking about efficiency. What if we could actually build fairness right into the system's DNA?
Seriously, just let that question hang in the air for a second, because it is right at the heart of a new system that could totally change how we decide who gets power and why.
So you might be wondering, why do we even need a new approach? I mean, don't the lights stay on most of the time? Well, the simple answer is that our modern power grids are under a ton of stress.
I mean, think about it. You've got solar and wind power that are amazing, but they come and go with the weather. Then you've got millions of electric vehicles starting to plug in, all at the same time. And all this is running on infrastructure that's, getting older by the day. The old rulebook, it just wasn't written for this kind of chaos.
Okay, so what's the potential solution here? Well, it's called the Automatic Market Maker, or AMM for short. And you should know it's way less of a market in the traditional sense and way more of a super smart controller for the grid itself.
So here's the big idea. The AMM acts like a digital referee or a controller. Its main job is to constantly measure the physical health of the grid and make decisions that keep it stable and, importantly, fair for absolutely everyone connected to it.
This chart really shows you the night and day difference. You see, today's grid often works like a big auction. When power gets scarce, the highest bidder gets the goods. The AMM just tosses that model right out the window. Its primary goal isn't just economic efficiency. It's stable and fair operation for everyone. The price isn't based on who's willing to pay the most, but on what the grid physically needs to stay balanced. And when there's a shortage, forget the highest bidder. It's all about protecting essential services first. It's a huge shift.
So how does the AMM actually pull this off? How does it make these incredibly smart decisions? Well, it all starts by learning to speak a completely new language, the language of scarcity.
To get a full 360-degree view, the AMM is constantly blending four key signals. First, it's looking at instant scarcity. That's the supply versus demand happening right this second. Then, it's looking ahead with forecast scarcity, predicting imbalances that might be coming up soon. It also checks for network scarcity. Think of this like physical traffic jams on the power lines, congestion or voltage problems. And finally, stability scarcity, which is all about the grid's overall ability to handle a sudden shock.
All of that amazing data gets boiled down into one single crucial number, the deficit. And that's just a fancy word for the very real physical gap between how much power everyone is asking for and how much is actually available. This single metric, based on pure physics, is what drives everything the AMM does.
Okay, now this is where it gets really clever. One of the most elegant parts of this whole design is how it handles problems at totally different scales. It uses what's called a holarchic structure, which is basically just a series of nested layers, like Russian dolls. Let's walk through how that actually works.
Okay, picture this. Let's say the transformer on your street is getting totally overloaded because everyone decided to charge their new EVs at exactly the same time. The AM spots this super local problem, and the price gets set right there at that one specific node to send a signal to ease off and fix that local traffic jam.
But what if your street is perfectly fine, and the real problem is bigger? Let's say your entire region is short on power generation. No problem. The AMM just zooms out. The price signal now comes from that wider zone, because that's where the real scarcity is happening.
And finally, you guessed it, if all the local streets and regional zones are doing okay, but the entire grid is running on a razor-thin margin, then one system-wide price kicks in for everybody. So the key takeaway is this: the price always comes from whatever layer is feeling the most strain, whether that's your street, your city, or the whole grid. And all of this whole clever, multi-layered system, it brings us right back to that first question we asked about fairness. Because all this cool engineering isn't just about being efficient. It's specifically designed to create a grid that is fundamentally more fair.
So check this out. In a grid run by an AMM, when things get really bad and there's a critical power shortage, the amount of money you have, your willingness to pay, it has exactly zero impact on whether you get power. I mean, really let that sink in for a moment. Your wealth doesn't get you to the front of the line for an essential service like electricity.
So what happens instead? Well, the process is actually incredibly clear and predictable. First, the AMM detects a real physical deficit. Next, prices rise for everyone, not to make a profit, but to send a clear signal that power is scarce. Then, and this is the important part, a fair play algorithm kicks in. And that is what allocates the limited power based on real need, making sure that hospitals, first responders, and other critical services are protected first.
You know, when you step back, what we're really looking at here is a massive philosophical shift in how we think about managing our most critical pieces of infrastructure.
There's a quote from the research that just nails it, I think. It says, "The AMM replaces who pays most allocation with who contributes most, who needs protection, who can shift the most." The system stops asking this one simple, dumb question, who can pay the most, and starts asking much, much smarter questions.
Ultimately, what the AMM offers is a vision for a power grid that acts less like some chaotic, cutthroat marketplace, and more like an intelligent, cooperative system, a kind of digital organism that's managed for the stability and the well-being of every single person who relies on it.
And that really leaves us with a final big question to think about. As we look at incredible new technologies like the AMM, we really have to ask ourselves, when it comes to the systems that power our entire society, what's the right model for our future? Should it be a competitive marketplace for the highest bidders, or a cooperative system that's built to serve everyone?